and welcome back to Steampunk's GameSpot's PC-focused show, hosted by myself, Jess McDonald, and Edmund Tran.
That's me.
We are back again this week to talk about the episodic format for video games. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Or is it both?
Is it both?
It's probably both.
It's probably both. So a relevant example to start with is probably Life is Strange 2, which just came out. Episode 1 just came out. So they tend to vary based on episode length. They tend to be longer than what you'd expect, for example, from Telltale offerings. You're looking at more like 3 or 4 hours per episode if you really take your time, which is quite interesting. Obviously, also the original Life is Strange, you were rewinding and stuff, so however much you wanted to do that.
So there was some replayability there?
Yeah, there is some replayability because choices also have quite a big impact in that game. Right. You can really stuff things up quite easily. But I think the main thing that really contributes to that episodic format is they got major cliffhangers. Right. So it really is that television consuming sort of feeling.
Which is really great. I mean, the feeling of watching a TV show in real time, before the next episode comes out, there's some real good feelings that come from like, oh, what's going to happen next? I want to talk about it with someone. Yeah. You know, I want to like speculate and theory craft and all that kind of stuff. One
of the interesting divisions, I'm not sure how other episodic games do it, but Life is Strange doesn't tend to tell you when its next episode is coming out.
And that must be really annoying having you just finished the first episode. You're like, okay, when am I going to expect this?
Yeah, so that leads into the massive con for the episodic format, which is not knowing when you're getting your next offering or that offering not coming for months at a time.
On the flip side of that though, it is nice as a person who doesn't have a lot of time for games to be able to know that I can put away 3 or 4 hours for this part of Life is Strange, put it away and just like not think about it for a while. You know, when you get a big game like Assassin's Creed, which we're playing right now, you're just like putting chunks of your time into it, and like it never ever seems to like, get smaller. It's just so daunting.
It's a big investment.
Being able to split up your sort of gaming workload, so to speak, and knowing how to schedule your time for it is really handy for someone who, like me, who wants to play a lot of different games and wants to fit lots of different things in. This is one of the reasons why I really liked Hitman, the first season. So obviously there was a big uproar about Hitman's first season in that it was being cut up into 5 different episodes and only being released incrementally. And lots of people were like, just release the full game. What are you doing? This just feels like DLC. The difference with Hitman is that the type of game that Hitman was, it's like a sandbox simulation, sort of reactive world. So there was so much you can do. So each episode was a single location. If you haven't played Hitman before, that's how it goes. And each location was so dense and full of possibilities for you to take out your targets. There were so many different ways you could approach it, as well as so many different challenges you could play after you complete the main mission, that it was a lot of fun to sort of get to know the single location very intimately, to be able to do those more difficult challenges because you just knew exactly what you were doing or where you could possibly go, what your ins and outs were, what your plan Bs were, and all that kind of stuff. If Hitman was released as a full season, which I think the second season of Hitman is being released all in one go.
Right.
There's not as much incentive to spend time in the one place.
Yeah.
And like you're always like, okay, finish this level, I want to move on. Finish that level, want to move on.
I think another one of the things that's really good about episodic games comes in the example of Dreamfall chapters. So that was originally when they thought about it, I mean, it's called chapters, that was going to be an episodic game.
Yeah.
And then they sort of rethought it and then they're like, no, we want to release this as a single package. And one of the things that was one of the main things they announced when they started the Kickstarter, they were like, don't worry, it's called chapters, but you're going to get it all at once. This is going to be one package, one game. On launch day, everything's going to be together. Of course, that doesn't really pan out. So Red Thread Games.
Game.
Yeah, and Red Thread is a pretty small studio, and I think they realized they had like a massive scope and all these ideas. I mean, this is the 3rd game in like a really big trilogy spanning decades. They really didn't want to screw it up, and they didn't want to compromise their vision. So what they ended up doing ultimately, I think about a year into the process of the Kickstarter, after everything was funded, was, hey, we're going back to the episodic format. They did talk about another huge factor was they got to put money back into the budget. So releasing each one of those chapters the way they did, each one of those books progressively, let them have like funds coming in.
To fund the next one.
That's
exactly why Broken Age did that same thing. Something that's obviously bad about that from a player perspective is you obviously forget about stuff that happens. One of my favorite game series, Banner Saga, is very much 3 distinct chunks out of one whole story. These are 15 to 20 hour tactical RPGs where you make a lot of different choices and decisions, and lots of stuff happens in them. And in the interim years between Banner Cycle 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, you get into the flow of the tactics and the combat and stuff, but you absolutely forget what happened in your game, which is a bummer. And obviously the biggest concern with episodic games is the risk that you might not see the end of a story that you really care about. Obviously a big example is Half-Life Episode 3, when Half-Life 2 went into its chaptered installments. And obviously it is the case with the latest example with Telltale. Obviously priorities in companies change, as is the case with Valve. And unforeseen, unfortunate circumstances can happen with Telltale. And if you, are really invested in a property that can suck, is it better to have loved and lost than not loved at all?
Wow, that got so much deeper than I expected.
Half-Life Episode 1 and 2 were very good, and I'm glad we got to play those games.
But that is just what we think, so let us know down in that comment section how you guys feel about the episodic format for games. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
And do you like to play your games as they come out, or do you like to wait for all the chapters to come and then binge on it?
Before we finish, let's put the spotlight on some of your comments from last week's episode where we talked about Uplay and the pros and cons of that. You guys had a lot to say. Some people very pro Uplay, some people very anti Uplay.
Which is the case with anything, really.
Yes. One of the comments we got was from Elementalism on YouTube, who said, I stopped playing EA games when it became Origin only, and companies like Bethesda will be seeing the same. Still playing UB games because I can still buy them on Steam and launch them directly from Steam. And I don't even notice it uses Uplay because I linked Uplay in Steam. No login or anything.
Yeah, it's a really good point. But it's still launching a launcher through another launcher.
Yeah, it's running through the background. Well, you only have to activate it once. So you would launch the game through Steam, and if you've linked it to your Uplay, then Uplay's happy for you to just launch it through Steam, and you don't have to go to Uplay, so long as Uplay YouTube is still running in the background.
This is all very convoluted. Lord Crisp on GameSpot says, it's true that God Galaxy was pretty bad in the beginning, but I actually like it a lot now. I'd say it's actually the second best platform now, only second to Steam. But then you have to factor in that everything is DRM free there, and they just do so much for gamers, and that's actually made it my favorite place to be. Steam is better as a platform, but not enough for me to care and not support the good guys. I hate being forced to have 45 different accounts on a different platform that barely works, just because they all want to get the profit margin to themselves. I mean, that's really good to hear about God Galaxy. I'm glad it's getting better because DRM free is very important. And it does suck that, all the publishers do just want their own platforms for their own profit. Obviously, because no one wants to pay Steam a cut of money every time 1,000 of a million bazillion people buy Assassin's Creed, which it makes sense.
It does.
We're live in a capitalist world, whatever, but it's really annoying for the consumer.
Yeah, inconvenient for gamers.
Yeah.
That's everything we've got to say this week, but do let us know what you think, and we'll see you again next week with a brand new PC-focused topic.